Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of this, the Rotoworld Football Podcast. My name is still Josh Norris. His name is still Ian Hartitz. That is John Daigle.
Not in my personal fantasy championship, but hopefully we can help some people get to their fantasy championship.
Well, I'm sure we have. I'm sure we all did very well this weekend.
I didn't, because Kenyon Drake just had another agenda.
The final round, the semifinals of the Scott Fish Bowl,
Oh.
me and one other person in our conference were trying to get to the final round, and I am down by 2 points. Michael Thomas, me, versus Drew Brees. I don't know how I get there, but...
Let's spend the next 45 minutes just talking about our fantasy teams rather than everyone out there.
Well, we're going to reflect. If we're going to reflect on everyone, I want to reflect on mine because the Scott Fish Bowl is a big deal.
Dave, before we get to football, and Ian, the last week of fantasy football for the entire season.
Fantasy football, yes.
Regular season.
Although there
I should
will
add.
be a Week 17 waiver wire column.
Okay.
I've been told this from the hierarchy.
Dave, I have a question for you.
What's up?
At 12:27 a.m.
Oh, I was wondering we were going to bring this up. I didn't know
Saturday
you were going
night-
to do a pod, though.
on Saturday night.
I'm sorry.
I was in my bed. Actually, I wasn't. I was watching UFC.
That's right.
But you didn't know what I was doing. I was living my second life.
Nope.
And I got a text from John Daigle, just a video.
I think I'm
of
blushing now.
Two people singing Disney princess melodies.
Yep.
Why? Why did I get that?
I went down the YouTube. So I was watching. I just want to fit in with my friends. So I started watching UFC, right? Because that's all the two of you talk about. And it's not that great, by the way. But I'm still up watching it, but I have it on mute, so I'm doing other things on my computer, and I'm going down the rabbit hole of, as you know, I watch a lot of freestyle. I don't ask me how or why.
No, that's not something I knew.
I love hip hop music, so I watch a lot of freestyle. So, as Ian's watching the video, after I got to watching Hamilton videos of them performing at the White House, and then led me down Disney princess medleys, which then included an 8-minute combination, I guess, a medley between two women singing at a karaoke bar, but they're like battling one another via Disney princess medleys. I was like, Josh may think this is entertaining, just because last week, if you want to get my...
I'm just asking you to dig your own hole
No,
here,
if you
and
want
it's
to put
great.
mine out of the
I'm
open,
enjoying
if you
it.
recall, once we hung out last week together, we ended up coming back at whatever time, karaokeing Disney princess melodies in the car. Now, it's all
Sure.
out on the table for everybody.
But this was a week later. Like, you're still hanging on to that moment. And I enjoyed it. I just wanted to...
Cherish my moments with my friends, Josh.
I just wanted to bring it up because I was surprised. In fact, I didn't even respond to it.
It's a lot of
That's how
burden.
much I enjoyed the link.
John said, UFC is not that great. So, yeah, keep enjoying your Disney princess melodies, man. Just
And well, you didn't mention that I also stayed up till
Whatever.
1 watching wrestling last night.
Just
So
There we
Ian
go.
slightly inserting himself as an alpha in every scenario is another thing that I'm learning as
this isn't even
podcast goes
hard.
along.
We're talking about Disney melodies or the best in the world fighting.
the
All right,
best
whatever.
in the world.
So just like last week, why don't we do some bad beats? You know, a lot of people had some bad beats this weekend. It was a weird, wild weekend of Week 15 action. So we reached out, asked people to send us, vent to us, and we can commiserate together. We have a number
lot,
of them.
too.
And we got
Yeah.
a lot
Which
of
is
them.
fine.
Sure. Let's start off with Big Nate. I had Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, and Breshad Perriman on my bench today. Instead, I played Odell Beckham, Julian Edelman, and Darius Slayton. I guess the point of this is to, one, wonder if we could have seen this coming, and two, try to give Big Nate a little bit of a pat on the back and be like, hey, it's okay. You still got next season coming up.
I think the only one that was maybe a mistake there was Darius Slayton. I know he had the big game with Eli back. Now after he scored yesterday, he's got 8 touchdowns. As a rookie, pretty select company. I mean, he's had a good year. But with that said, I mean, Miles Sanders, just with the way the Eagles' offense is so banged up right now, we knew he was looking at around 15 touches. A.J. Brown, we hyped him up the entire pregame show with just how good he is. I just think Sanders and Brown particularly were talented options that we could put in for similar workloads that just have way less competition in their offense. Breshad Perriman, 3 touchdowns on 6 targets. That's going to happen. I wouldn't kick yourself too hard for not throwing him in the lineup, but I think the Slayton call is the only one that's maybe a little bit off.
Totally agree. We support your happiness no matter what, Big Nate. But had you tuned in to the Sunday morning show, we would have talked you off of Odell and onto O.J. Brown, as we were very high on A.J. Brown. And Slayton was a toss-up, honestly. And even if it was just Slayton for Perryman, I think that would have been a toss-up as well, because as we noted on Sunday, Slayton's performance in the past week against the Eagles all came in one quarter, just like one little stretch.
The Julian Edelman decision was a difficult one as well, because it was one of those scenarios where we knew Edelman had missed a good amount of time during the week. Then he goes out against a very easy matchup and does very little. And once the Patriots had a lead, they just didn't need to use him. And so this was one of those weeks that other Patriots receivers like N'Keal Harry stepped up. And so Julian Edelman, I think, had like 19 yards.
The Patriots passed for 116 yards on 31 dropbacks.
Edelman's been
31.
Like, going into Sunday, he was a PPR wide receiver 4. Like, he needs to be in your starting lineup.
Oh, no, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was also one where we knew he was going to play, although it was a game time decision. I believe Rap Sheet suggested that heading into the game.
Yeah.
And it could have been a blow-up spot in some ways, but like now looking back, and this might be revisionist, Ian, it was also one where like, sure, this Patriots offense hasn't been good at all, but they're also facing the Bengals, and no matter what, you knew they were going to win this game, and probably pretty handily.
I know what you're saying. We were even mentioning before, like, this could be a Sony Michel game script type game. So, no, I could see the potential holes.
Like, meanwhile, and again, this is looking back, but A.J. Brown probably was the better play going against an equally awful defense in the Houston Texans and someone who has been playing like a top 10 wide receiver in recent weeks as well.
I think A.J. Brown definitely over Slayton, but OBJ and Edelman, I'm not going to fault them too bad.
Yeah, you were starting Edelman no matter what.
Next up, skiing with dynamite. Amazing handle.
Nice.
Started Leonard Fournette over Kenyon Drake, and skiing with dynamite ended up losing by 3 points in his fantasy league. You guys know how I feel about Leonard Fournette. Kenyon Drake, though, is a name where, yes, heading into this one, I absolutely would have suggested Kenyon Drake as the start because...
Over Fournette?
Yes.
What?
No.
Well, no, I don't think Leonard Fournette's good at football. Kenyon Drake's a better football player.
He still got 20 touches yesterday, though.
That's fine. We get 20 touches all the time from Leonard Fournette, and 18 of them equal 46 yards, and then he has to reel off one run for 40 yards.
I mean, he's a mid-tier, like, RB1 on the season. You act like he just hasn't been doing anything all year. I know he's only scored a few times. The guy's been racking up yards still.
But hasn't Kenyon Drake also, when he's the starter, been a mid-tier running back one as well?
He was the RB21 since joining the Cardinals. He was getting 14-plus touches per game. Like, good play. Over Fournette, though, the only guy with a Fournette workload is McCaffrey. And clearly, he's not McCaffrey.
Yeah. I mean, the talent disparity between the two. And I understand facing the Oakland Raiders is an easy matchup, one of the easiest ones of the weekend.
It didn't matter because he still ran for 2.8 yards per carry.
Correct.
But he got 20 touches.
I mean, this is all backing up my...
This is why I like DFS as well, because you can incentivize yourself by playing Kenyon Drake in a bottle immediately. Whereas Fournette and Kenyon Drake, it doesn't make sense when you can have either in season long, to me, to play Drake over Fournette. I don't think that was the wrong decision at all.
No, I agree.
And I know it came back to haunt you.
Where do you stand on Fournette? Like, are you excited about him heading into 2020?
I think it sucks rostering him in fantasy because he's in a position where you know what he's going to get and you know it doesn't matter. So it's the worst. It's the worst rostering him.
He's just like a poor man's Derrick Henry, I think. I mean,
in every way possible.
He does break off these big runs at times, but it's way less frequent. Yeah, that's fair. And he just doesn't have. I mean, Henry, like, he falls forward for 4 yards, even though he's only playing with one hamstring right now. I mean, Fournette, it's just been a rough sledding pretty much all year.
It was correct for us in the industry to be ahead of Fournette. Like, if we go back to our best ball tiers and our rankings in the magazine and whatnot, a lot of us were very high on Fournette. That was correct. But the not being able to cover himself in touchdown deodorant and not being able to muster anything over, like, he's averaging 3.2 yards per carry over the last 5 games. Like, this offense has just kind of lost it. The defense
73 catches this year.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. It's also a back.
That's the thing. The usage is so
with
good.
zero acceleration, who can't score near the goal line.
He's healthy. He may not be able to move, but he's healthy.
This is kind of the point, and you guys, in many ways, are smarter at me when it comes to knowing the formula of who to play. But
and what videos to look up.
So much of fantasy seems reliant on volume, right? But at some point, we have to just look at talent. At some point, we have to look at talent and say, Leonard Fournette, at best, is an average running back in the NFL. And Kenyon Drake has looked a lot better than Leonard Fournette with equal volume, without equal volume this year. And that's what makes me come to the decision, one, that Kenyon Drake's just a better football player. And I understand that 20-plus touches, yada, yada, with Fournette has maximized him as a mid-tier running back one throughout the season. But it's not with good play at all. He has no acceleration. He's a Not a bad
I mean,
football player.
I agree with everything you said. I just look at usage, though. You're telling me a running back is playing against Oakland on every single down. I'm taking that still. I don't think it was the wrong call.
And look, Drake hadn't been playing bad with the Cardinals, but he scored in Week 9, hadn't really found the end zone since. This offense looked awful the previous 2 weeks. I saw this. I was very confident the Cardinals were going to smack the Browns. I mean, it was a good spot, but I don't think it was an outright play them over Fournette.
Big picture here, because I've been getting a jump on top 150 free agents list to released right after the Super Bowl, and Kenyon Drake is included in this list. What do the Cardinals do with Drake with David Johnson also on that money and Chase Edmonds on his rookie contract?
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's interesting.
I'm so glad we'll get to review each of these teams and get to that later on in the season, because right now, sitting here on Monday morning of heading into Week 16, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Because David Johnson's contract is one that they obviously gave him, and I think David Johnson's looked decent in recent weeks, but he's certainly not the talent that Kenyon Drake or even probably Chase Edmonds is right now.
Sure, and lesser run. Like, Kenyon Drake has pretty much been bottled his whole career. He hasn't gotten full run the entire time, so he's healthy.
Right, exactly. And that's also one where David Johnson is who he is right now in Week 16 of the season based on getting beat up and being injured at points this year, and Kenyon Drake, like you said, has been healthy.
There's an offense that I don't think needs to invest any more money at running back, though. It's this one. I mean, I've been trying to look at like yards before contact on a team-wide scale every week, and the Cardinals are like right there behind the Ravens. Their offensive line ranks towards the bottom of the league, but Kingsbury, even though the passing game has kind of been up and down, he's been scheming the running backs to success all year.
I guess the difference is this contract for Drake will not reset the market, whereas like Zeke, like why are you paying this much money?
Yeah.
More Kenyon Drake being the thorn in people's sides this weekend. Chris Winters swapped out Kenyon Drake for Emmanuel Sanders. I gave him some credit at the start. At 3:55, so just before kickoff. It was a brutal day from his wide receivers. Yes, Jarvis Landry, Julian Edelman, and DK Metcalf.
Jarvis Landry,
Look at
Julian
that.
Edelman, DK Metcalf.
The swap was almost a 40-point difference. Emmanuel Sanders 1.9 points, Kenyon Drake 41 points.
Don't trust the Yahoo projections. Come on, we know this by now.
No offense to the Yahoo people at all.
They're fine.
Good people.
They're just so based on season long. I think they struggled to correct it to weekly matchups a little bit more.
But here's the thing. Emmanuel Sanders, when he had been playing 80% of the snaps, was highly productive, right? Either like a touchdown or 6 or 7 catches in each game. And so he was basically a consistent wide receiver too in a lot of those stretches, and we expected him to play 80% of the snaps against the Falcons. It just didn't happen this weekend for anyone other than George Kittle basically in that offense.
So the game script ended up being fine for Sanders, but some of the things we were talking about Edelman, I think we also probably should have seen here with Manny Sanders. Just this being a spot where it looked like the 49ers were going to be able to have their way with the Falcons. Clearly that didn't happen. I don't think we gave enough credit to some of those injuries on the 49ers defensive side of the ball. But now I think this one, probably should have played Drake. It's tough when you make these last-second decisions. I swapped out Curtis Samuel for clearly, like, it doesn't matter. For Sterling Shepard, like, the fact I had to make that decision anyway can tell you how that matchup went. But I don't know. Like, we have all week to make these decisions, and then I know how pressing it can be to tinker at the last second. But, we always talk about this in DFS. Like, don't tinker an hour before because your emotions just get the best of you. Let the lineup sit.
If you want to go really behind the scenes, I think having the show 1 hour before lineup lock has helped me in DFS cash games because I don't get to tinker anymore.
Yeah.
It's like it has its disadvantages and advantages. But either way, you said the first 3 receivers. DK Metcalf was the one I was thinking. But had you asked yesterday, I still would have started Metcalf over Emmanuel Sanders. James Bradbury he's allowed 27 catches on 35 targets since week 8, the last half of the season. So he's been beatable in this second half. And I think I still would have played Drake over Sanders. Because remember, David Johnson's touches the week prior came out of game script. Like, it was out of hand already. So we still assumed Drake was the workhorse for this team. And I would have just gone with those touches instead. Not to put salt in the wound.
Before we move on, 'tis the season for giving here at Rotoworld. And we're getting into the holiday spirit and want to give back to our loyal users. So we've launched the 12 days of Roto holiday giveaway every day for the next 12 days. Well, I guess we're in the middle of it right now. We're promoting a premium product flash giveaway. Products, promo codes, and times will all change each day. So you have to monitor our site for breaking news banners and our Twitter accounts for details each day. And each giveaway will only last 1 hour. So go and act fast. Just, constantly refresh that Twitter feed, that Instagram account, that Rotoworld.com website.
What day is this now? How many more days do we have till Christmas? That's what I should be asking.
10.
10.
If my math is correct.
Gotta stop waiting until Christmas Eve to buy presents.
What's the best gift you ever received, Ian?
Best gift I ever received? Oh, that was a birthday present. My mom got me these pair of Nike Shox when I was like in 5th grade, and they were like my first truly fresh pair of shoes.
Remember the
and I was
Nike
so
Shox?
happy.
Like the ones that like had the little circles at the bottom? They're so ugly. No offense.
They were so cool, man. I don't know what
They
you're
were
talking
cool
about.
for the era, yeah. Era adjusted, they're amazing.
Adjusted.
What was your best gift you've ever received?
Man, that's a fair question. The one I always go back to was when I was really, really little. I have a brother who's just a year older than me. And we were probably like 4 and 3. And we go downstairs, and it was one of those electronic cars that you get into, and one person at the steering wheel, one person sits in the passenger seat. And we were obsessed with fire trucks at the time. Like my mom and dad would just take us down to the fire station. We'd just hang out with the firemen because we just loved it. And so it was a fire truck. They got us a fire truck to drive around in. And my brother, as soon as he walks down into the room, says, "Oh, Josh, police car." And I go, "No, fire truck, Brian. Police car, police car." So then I just had to like look around and start calling it a police car, even though I knew it was a fire truck.
I wish I had one of those. It sounds fun.
Now? I don't know if you could.
Sure. We'll see.
Let's get a life-size one.
We could try.
Let's get a life-size one.
Just become an actual fireman.
Yeah. Okay, next up, continuing these bad beats. Look, we had some ones that were lineup decisions. Now let's move on over to ones that, you
had
some
no
game
control
script,
over?
no control
Yeah,
over.
those are the ones that hurt the most, honestly, because that gives you false hope.
This is from Stefan DeFerrari. Thought I was going to win because of Jameis Winston. Dalvin Cook got hurt. No one else showed up. He left Devontae Parker on his bench. And in the end, he lost after that final second Julio Jones touchdown. Big yikes.
Why did I would be curious, Stefan, who you left Parker on your bench for? Because Parker was in a great spot yesterday. Like he practiced in full on Friday and then was cleared. Like we figured he would be cleared from protocol after he practiced.
So it's only a 2 wide receiver league. He had Amari Cooper and Kenny Galladay ahead of Devontae Parker, and then also started Leonard Fournette in his flex instead of Devontae Parker.
Okay, I agree with all those decisions.
Yeah, it's just tough.
That one just hurts.
This is what he should have done, and we'll get into this name in a little bit.
Are you gonna say bench
But
Fournette again?
No, the other running back spot, he started Patrick Laird instead of Leonard Fournette in the flex.
Okay, that's
so
the
you start
problem.
Fournette instead of Laird, and then you start Parker in that flex
Yeah,
spot.
come on, man.
That's what it should have been.
Yep, I agree with that. And Laird was seeing run yesterday, but it turns out he's not good, so they had to bench him like in the second half because he also had 2 big drops.
How could we have ever had the foresight to see that? Coming?
But hey, he's a good guy.
Here's another one from Fantasy Alpha. He was winning 127 to 125. Then after said Julio touchdown that Stefan lost on, Raheem Mostert fumbled on the
This one
kickoff.
hurts.
So that brings it to 125 tie. So that means the higher scorer in his lineup is the tiebreaker. His opponent had Christian McCaffrey 37 points. Fantasy Alpha had 31 points.
That hurts.
means
I
he
kind
lost.
of like that tiebreaker rule. With that said, like decimals. What are
I
we
agree.
doing here?
Yeah.
We need half points. We need partial points.
We need 0.2 points. Yeah. we
I
need
don't
decimals.
understand why any league goes on now in 2019 and only goes in full point scoring.
Yep.
Decimals and get rid of kickers.
I do kind of do like this, like high scoring.
It's better than bench.
It's something.
It's better than a tie as well.
I'm saying I know a lot of tiebreakers like highest bench score sometimes is what decides it. And I like the highest individual score.
It's something unique for sure. But yeah, we should definitely be getting rid of defenses and kickers for 2 flex spots.
Yes.
That's without a doubt.
All right, let's close with this one, the bad beats segment. Jeremy Hennigan was ahead by 2.92 points on the final drive of Sunday Night Football. His opponent had the Buffalo defense. So we know that Duck Hodges gets sacked on that final drive and then throws an interception. So ultimately, Jeremy loses by 0.08 points.
Oh.
Crushing. Crushing. You want to give up fantasy football at that
Yeah.
point.
And this is why you shouldn't have decimals in your fantasy. No. That's so brutal. That
is brutal.
So brutal.
And his team name is cut off, but the first before it gets abbreviated is put Coughlin in A.
Oh, no. And the other part of this is Jeremy started the week with Lamar Jackson and still lost.
Oh.
How bad do you feel about yourself as a fantasy football player if you started the week with here 37 points or some cases 42 points with Lamar Jackson, and then you're like, oh, I've got this in the bank. And then you head on, you have people like Dalvin Cook, maybe an Amari Cooper, so on and so forth, who just put up nothing in that final lineup.
Yeah, it's brutal. I lost one with Lamar and McCaffrey, but that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I have a question though about, it's not even exactly related to this, but I know in some leagues, a fumble is -2 fantasy points and an interception is only -1. Can we change that? Like, they should both be 1 or 2.
Okay, here's my suggestion. Why not have, interception should be -2 no matter what.
Yeah.
But why not have every fumble, not just fumbles lost, count as -1 point?
So if it's lost, it'd be 2 and normal 1?
I just think everything is just 1.
No, I agree. Okay.
Every fumble 1.
Yeah.
I'm cool with
I'm
that.
agree with that. Lost or not, every fumble.
Yeah,
Hold on
I'm
to the
agree with
ball.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because once it hits the ground, it is fumble luck.
I just think it's still crazy, and I've been saying this for the last decade, that it's 2019 now, and we haven't all sat around a table and just agreed on a universal scoring system. It is insane that we all can't just, and I understand we can't agree on anything in this country, but we should be able to agree on fantasy scoring.
Well, one of my favorite things every Sunday on Rotoworld Live is that people say that their league is full point PPR scoring, then ask us a quarterback question.
Right.
And it's just like which one might catch a pass.
Yeah.
Full PPR Brady
It's
versus.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Speaking of Rotoworld Live, by the way, we're switching it to Saturday this week because there are 3 extremely good matchups on Saturday, including important fantasy pieces. So noon Eastern, Saturday, twitch.tv/Rotoworld will be answering your fantasy championship lineup questions, previewing games as well. And then, the replay will be up on YouTube and Twitch as well, so you can watch that Sunday morning if you have this routine that you're going.
But the review pod is still Sunday overnight.
Yes.
Okay. But hey, you can get a jump on it behind the scenes.
And then I'm going to drive down to Charlotte.
Oh yeah, then you're going
you
home
go.
for a little bit.
This is our last Tuesday podcast for a while.
We got Wednesday Christmas
No,
party, though.
It's just 1 week.
too.
Just 1 week.
Is this your first company Christmas party coming up, Ian?
I already picked out my outfit.
You have an outfit?
It's just a Des Bryant Christmas sweater that says Merry Xmas.
Well, don't
course it is.
ruin it. You spoiled it for me.
Surprise
I
possession.
wanted to see it.
You
How long have you had that for?
You should go blazer over
Years.
Years.
Blazer.
Blazer
Oh, I
over
like
it,
that.
Yeah. That way it's also fashionable.
There we go.
Daigle, let's hit on your waiver column because it's an important week. A lot happened this weekend that can change some important pieces again as we hit the fantasy championship. The first up is Breshad Perriman, who we touched on earlier against the Detroit Lions, an awful defense. Perriman stepped into that second wide receiver role, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 113 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Next up, he gets an awful Houston Texans secondary.
Yeah.
There were questions heading into this game because we knew Mike Evans was out for the season. Who was going to be that second receiver opposite Chris Godwin? Now, we also know that Chris Godwin exited this matchup. So Breshad Perriman features maybe as a wide receiver 1.
And Bruce Arians said it doesn't look good for Chris Godwin. Scotty Miller, it was a re-aggravation from his hamstring injury that kept him out the 2 games prior. So really, it looks like they are going to move forward with a quarterback who has attempted the most passes in the league with Breshad Perriman, Justin Watson, and Ismail Hyman, I believe the word is.
Yeah,
One of the 2.
let's go.
Yeah, it's AAF receiver, by the way. So that's the 3-wide set, likely for the team's final 2 games. And Perriman, we saw him step in. He had led them in routes run. He had run 50 routes run, I believe, in their past 2 weeks heading into Sunday. And he had a rapport with Jameis Winston. We saw him do this last year over the final month with the Browns. And now he tends to, I guess, be doing it again with the Bucs. I still like Justin Watson, and Justin Watson will still be on the waiver wire. But it's clear now that Perriman is the guy who will step in and be used frequently.
Yeah, and I was wondering going into this if Watson would be the Evans replacement. We see Perriman and Scotty kind of take that field stretcher role. No, Perriman was the every snap guy, so I'm with you there. I would point out O.J. Howard, 8 targets, Cam Brate, 7 targets. I mean, they're using their tight ends a lot more. It's kind of like Philly with all these injuries at wide receiver. They are kind of forced to use their tight ends more in the passing game. So against Houston, I don't think I would put Howard above Brate because of the snaps, but I think they're both decent tight end streamers as well.
You mentioned Perriman's play with the Browns last year to close out the year. You remember he signed, basically was agreed to a contract extension with the Browns during the offseason. Then when they traded for Odell Beckham, he's like, nah, get me out of here. I'm going to go to the Tampa Bay Bucks. It's funny because Breshad Perriman has 5 touchdowns in the season. Odell just has 2, which is crazy.
Hurts,
to
buddy.
Think about. All right, moving on. Danny Amendola next up. Maybe one of his best weeks since week 1. Danny Amendola against the said Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. 13 whopping targets from David Blau, 8 receptions, 102 yards. Next up against the Denver Broncos. Daigle, I'm just going to say it. There's no way I want to rely on Danny Amendola in my fantasy
I don't either.
championship.
I don't blame you. I don't either. But people will be desperate. Some people may have missed out on Perriman and Watson. Some people may have to look to after losing Chris Godwin, Danny Amendola. And the fact is, he at the very least likely won't get you a goose egg in the fantasy championship. 29 targets now from David Blau the past 3 games. Team high, 24% target share in that span. Meanwhile, Kenny Golladay, his last 11 quarters, because remember, he had 2 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown in his first quarter from Blau on Thanksgiving. The last 11 quarters, 16% target share, 11 total catches for 156 yards and 1 score. So basically just an afterthought because Blau doesn't throw downfield. He had a couple deep chunks on extending plays outside of the pocket yesterday, but even one of them was a 56-yard catch to Amendola. So I think Amendola at the very least offers you 4 or 5 points. And I know you don't want 4 or 5 points, but in a desperation spot, there are people that have to lean on him.
And you've talked about this, that you're not necessarily deciding who you're going to start on Tuesday and Wednesday, but just go out and try to have the best bench on Tuesday and Wednesday, and adding Danny Amendola, who might see some volume, probably is the best avenue for that. And this, might not be true, but in my head, early in the season when I was watching TJ Hockenson and Danny Amendola, they were kind of playing a complementary role to each other. And now with Hockenson out for the remainder of the year, which happened, I believe, last week or the week before, Danny Amendola probably is going to be the king of that middle of the field area, and that showed up this past weekend against Tampa Bay.
No, Marvin Jones, too, just reinforces that point. And yeah, it's, not the worst matchup in the world in Denver, maybe not ideal, but Chris Harris, best nickelback of the decade, no longer plays in the slot for whatever reason, so he's set up pretty well.
And again, these are just a few names from John Daigle's waiver column. Go and check out the full one up on Rotoworld, because I'm sure he'll have names like Greg Ward, so on and so forth in that
I'm going
as
to have
well.
to write about Greg Ward, aren't I?
Yes, you are. Let's close it out with the Minnesota backfield situation. Mike Boone stepped in for an injured Dalvin Cook, 13 carries, 56 yards, and 2 touchdowns against the Los Angeles Chargers in very, very positive game script. Next up, Daigle, is the Green Bay Packers, and they're pretty bad defense as well. So Mike Boone, Alexander Madison's lurking, still coming back from an injury. This is a backfield that can obviously produce a running back 1, a top 12 scorer. We don't know if it's going to be Mike Boone, though.
There is a lot to unpack here.
Yes.
So, Alexander Madison missed 3 consecutive practices and was ruled out on Friday. That leaves his availability for this upcoming week ominous at the very least. We're going to know more by Wednesday and Thursday and Friday as we get practice reports this week. However, this would still be Mike Boone's backfield if Dalvin Cook stays out after. They said it wasn't a re-aggravation, but if that's not the case.
So here it is. Here's the quote. Mike
Yes, tell
Zimmer
me.
was asked whether the injury to Dalvin Cook sustained to his shoulder is the same one as been lingering since the Broncos game. Quote, no, it's not. And whether he knows Dalvin Cook's timeline for recovery, no, I do not.
So if it's not a re-aggravation, that's just like he's the flesh wound knight from. He's just like sitting there battling
From Monty Python.
From Monty Python. He's like no arms flailing. So either way, though, also something interesting to note. Remember, if the Rams have to win out and the Vikings have to lose out for the Rams to make the playoffs, the Rams play Saturday night. The Vikings are going to know Sunday morning if this game even means anything, which means they could limit Dalvin Cook. So ideally, you may not have room for this. Ideally, you want Madison, pending injury reports, and Boone. But right now, if you told me you have to do it, and this is Monday, but you have to do it in a vacuum,
Yeah,
I
one or
guess
the other.
you have to do Boone.
Wow.
You have to right now.
Over Madison, you're saying?
I think so, yeah. I mean, just from what we know, 3 straight DNPs.
I got to be honest, Daigle. Ian Hartitz has been waiting all season long for someone to go down in this back, someone to emerge as a lead running back.
We've all been waiting for it.
And it not be Alexander Madison in this Vikings backfield. And you are just speaking music to his ears right
I
now.
love it.
Like I said, it depends on Madison's injuries. And I would say Boone got 4 carries inside the 10 yesterday when he came in for Dalvin Cook. 11 carries to Abdullah's 5 from that point forward. But 4 of Abdullah's 5 carries came once Boone had already rushed for 2 touchdowns. It was literally Boone's backfield, and that's it.
Well, luckily, all 3 are really talented football players, including Dalvin Cook. And this is also a system that can create yards for their backs. And then you had Mike Boone, who was either the most or second most athletic player at the running back position coming out of Cincinnati.
Preseason superstar.
Ranked him
Him and
higher
Mostert,
than
always.
anyone else coming out in the world. And then you also have Alexander Madison. It wouldn't be shocking, though, Ian, and again, we don't have this information right now, that if Alexander Madison is cleared, that he's the lead running back in this situation heading into Sunday.
Yeah, I think he's always been the favorite to be the lead running back, and our disagreement came down to Madison versus Tony Pollard, and I just thought that Pollard if something happened to Zeke or something happened to Dalvin, he had the more secure 3-down role because of Mike Boone, because of Amir Abdullah, who, even if he is the clear backup, we do still see him in on pass downs, and we have seen that a little bit all season. But no, if Madison's healthy, it's just we don't really know his health right now.
I agree.
think he's still the favorite to be over Boone, but I see it more in the 12 to 15 touch range and not 20 plus.
The only reason I'm saying Boone is because of the injury to Madison.
Right.
If Madison's cleared, I will say Madison over Boone.
Okay, here's a question for you. Let's say you, at the end of your bench, have people like, I don't know, Evan Ingram and Mecole Hardman. Would you just dump both to go after both Alexander Madison and Mike Boone in your bench?
And I mean,
Now's the time to eliminate all the fat on your bench.
I would be dumping guys like Curtis Samuel. Like, any guy you're not starting, you have to dump. Any guy you're not starting, you have to dump to make your team better.
Unprovoked shot at Curtis Samuel.
This is the week where like you're going to the beach next week. You have to trim it all down. And by the way, Tony Pollard will be in the waiver wire column. But if you want to be ranking backups, like 12 of Pollard's 14 carries came in the second half when the Cowboys were up by 3 scores already. So
I can't believe you want to cut Christian McCaffrey's handcuff.
Guys, that's it. Did I miss anything? Nope. Should we move on?
I think we covered it all.
All right, we'll be back later on this week. Actually, a little preview here, Ian. We talked about this.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's doing these lists to finish out the decade. They get a lot of clicks. So, you know, we're going to dive into that just a little bit. Ian and I are going to reveal our top 5 favorite players from the last decade of just watching NFL football. Yeah. It should be fun.
It's going to be a great one.
Interesting.
That'll be on Wednesday. You don't care, John Daigle. You said, I'm so glad I'm not doing that podcast.
Well, you're not supposed to tell people that. I'm not like an all-decade list guy. Like, anytime someone talks about the Hall of Fame, I check out immediately.
I'm very excited.
It's just not my passion.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be a fun one.
I'm
So get
excited to
yours
listen
ready
to
as
y'all.
well. Not you, Daigle. Everyone out there listening. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, Rotoworld Live will be this Saturday. We'll be back on Thursday and Friday this week as well. So for John, for Ian, I'm Josh. Talk to us soon. See ya.